All right, so let us go ahead and begin in prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. All right, welcome to class for the 2nd of April, Thursday. Okay, this is your last day of classes for this week, but tomorrow's an important day for you. All right, today we want to be able to solve inverse trig functions. Let me move over a little bit so you can see that better. All right, what we've been doing for homework today is finding trig functions, like the sine of 30 equals 1/2. What we want to do today is that if I know the answer is 1/2, we want to be able to figure out that 30 degrees was what the angle is. So it's the same thing we've been doing, it's just that we want to be able to go backwards. Okay, so today is an important class because Friday you have a quiz, and I'm also going to give you homework right after this class is over. Your homework is due by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'm doing that on purpose because I have office hours at 9 o'clock. So if there's any issues or questions, we'll be able to take care of it right at 9 o'clock. So you have homework today, due in Dropbox by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'm going to post a quiz, and that quiz is due by midnight tomorrow. Okay, this is not a daily quiz. We're not spinning for this one. This is a mid-chapter quiz. So this is a very important grade. It's worth a lot of your grade, and it has to be submitted to get credit by midnight tomorrow. So big day tomorrow for geometry, even though we're not meeting. Everybody understand that? Everybody good? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right. On that quiz, it is very important that you show your work. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that in an example. Because if all you do is write down the correct answers, you're not going to do very well on the quiz. Most of the credit on the quiz is going to come from how you show your work. Because there's different ways to do these problems to get the correct answer. You can do any correct way you want as long as you show me how you did it and show your work. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with reviewing a homework problem. Okay? Here's one of your homework problems. It's actually problem number 5 from the homework that you just turned in. Okay? You had to find X and Y, but I really want to focus in on finding Y so that we all see one example worked out. This is a trig problem because I know I want to try to find a side, and I know an angle, and I know another side. It has to be a 90-degree triangle or a right triangle to use trig. I do have a 90-degree angle, so it is a right triangle. The very first thing you have to figure out anytime you attempt to do a problem by trigonometry is where your reference point is. I often say where you're standing. Okay? There are 3 vertices, A, B, and C. Where is the one place that you can never stand? What vertex of the triangle can you never stand at?
C.
C, 90 degree. Because if all you know is the 90 degrees, I don't know enough about the triangle to use trig. Okay? So you can stand at A or B. And what I want to show you today is that it doesn't matter where you stand, you'll get the correct answer. So let's stand at A. I'm going to imagine your feet are on the ground right here. Okay? If this is where you are, okay, this side next to you or across from you? This side of the triangle. Is it next to you or across from you?
Across.
If you're standing here, does this side come touch to where you're standing?
Yes.
So it is what? It's next to you. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Mathematically, we say that this side is adjacent to you. Because you got to imagine you're standing here. You can reach down and pick up this side, can't you? It's right next to you. Mathematically, we call that adjacent. Okay? This side is a little bit different. I'm standing way over here. Is this side next to me? This side BC, is it next to me? No, it's all the way across. If the side is all the way across from you, that is called the opposite side. Okay? That is the hard part of trig, is you have to figure out where you're going to stand, and you have to define the other the two legs of the triangle as either being next to you or across from you. This is the easy side, because we already have a name for that side. What is that side of the triangle called?
Hypotenuse.
That's the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse never changes its name. It is always the hypotenuse. Okay? So now, if I'm standing here, I've given names to the three sides of my triangle. I'm going to call this side adjacent or next to me. I'm going to call this side opposite from where I'm standing because it's across from me. And this guy is always the hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle. That one never changes. All right, so there's my three names. I've named the sides of the triangle, all in relation to where I'm standing. Okay? Once you've done that, now we're ready to use this acronym, SOHCAHTOA. This is on your theorem sheet. Make sure you have it prominently displayed in your notes. Okay? What does the S stand for in SOHCAHTOA? What's the S stand for?
Subtract.
What's that?
Subtract.
No, sign.
Sides.
Remember that sign button that you have on your calculator, S-I-N?
Yep.
This means use the sign button. This means what? Cosine, and this means tangent, because that's the three trig buttons you have on your calculator, right? Sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine, cosine, and tangent. The two letters that come after the S, C, and T tell you what the definition of sine is. Okay, sine, cosine, and tangent are all ratios. Okay, they're all ratios. The sine ratio is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. The cosine ratio is adjacent over hypotenuse. And the tangent is opposite over adjacent. Notice, adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse is how I just named my triangle up here, isn't it? So do you see how the names in your triangle now correspond to these letters? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because now comes the hard part. Now, if you're standing here, you have to look at what you know and what you're trying to find in this problem. If I'm standing here, what side do I know? What side were you given in this problem? The 14, right? What side is that? What did we name that side?
Opposite.
The opposite side. And what side am I trying to find?
Hypotenuse.
The hypotenuse. Why? So I know this, and I'm trying to find this. So I know the opposite, and I'm trying to find the hypotenuse. What trig functions links those two terms together? Which one links opposite and hypotenuse? Where do you see O and H together? Right here. That's where you see O and H together. Okay, that's why you have to figure out where you're standing and name your sides, because it's going to determine what function you use, sine, cosine, or tangent. So does everybody see that if I know the 14, I'm trying to find the y, I'm interested in opposite, hypotenuse, I need to use sine. Everybody see that? So now I can write an equation. I can say that the sine of where I'm standing, where am I standing? At the 49 degrees, right? See, what sine tells me to do is opposite over adjacent. And it's the opposite over adjacent as defined by where I'm standing, okay? So this is the ratio I'm looking for, and this is where I'm standing. Does everybody see that? So if I stand here, what is my opposite over adjacent? Well, it's a ratio. I can now fill it in, okay? The O comes first, so I'm up top first. What is my opposite side? What goes here? What is my opposite side?
14.
14. What is my hypotenuse? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. Okay. This is the guy that I was trying to get to. This is the guy that's going to get you half the credit for the quiz question. You have to write this down because that tells me you understand how to decide where you're going to stand, that you're standing at the 49. You know that you got to connect what you know to what you're trying to find opposite the hypotenuse. So you write sine and you put 14 and y in because that is the opposite in hypotenuse. So that is worth half the credit for that problem. So you have to write that down on your quiz tomorrow to get that credit. Make sense? Okay. Then why did we want to put it in this form? Here's why. I'm trying to find this, right? I'm trying to find y. I know this, and I actually know this. The sine of 49 is in your calculator. It's a ratio, isn't it? Let's do that to make sure that we're all in the right mode, especially if you downloaded that app. If you download that app on your telephone, on your phone, the default is that you're in the radian mode. You have to change it to degrees. It's like changing your car pedometer from reading feet to miles. It's just a unit of measure. Okay, to make sure let's make sure we're in the degrees mode for everybody. If you go in your calculator, right next to the gold key is a key that says mode. If you hit that, you want to make sure that degree is highlighted. Okay, if you downloaded your calculator off the app, it is not going to say degrees. It's going to say radian. You have to toggle down and hit radian. Or on the app, I think you just touch radian, and it'll put it in the radian mode for you, okay? Now, let's take the sine of 49. Make sure that we all get the correct answer.
Wait, what mode are we supposed to be in?
Degree.
Okay.
You need to be in the degree mode, not the radian mode, okay? So now, if you take the sine of 49, you'll get a number. What number do you get? Go ahead and put that in your calculator. Sine of 49 is what?
I got
Negative.
0.75.
Got negatives. What? Wait,
Okay. If you got negative 0.9, you're still in the radian mode. You should get 0.7547.
yeah.
If you got 0.7547, you're in the degree mode, and that's the correct answer.
Wait, how do you? I don't understand. Like, how
I got 0.75. Yeah.
0.754, yeah, that's correct. Who had the question?
I don't understand. I don't understand how to do this.
What calculator are you using?
No,
Do you have a calculator?
not with me.
Okay, you have to. I would go on at the App Store and I would download that graphing calculator app. You need a calculator to do these problems. You don't need a calculator to write this, okay? But by tomorrow, you're going to have a calculator to finish it. But you can get that right off the App Store and it doesn't cost anything. But Jacob, do you understand how we got this far?
No, really.
Okay. Do you see that we were standing here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, probably what is going to be best for you to do is you didn't watch the video from Tuesday, did you?
No, sir.
You got to go back and watch that video from Tuesday. It explains this. And the
Jake.
link for that is it's on my YouTube channel, and the link for the YouTube channel is on class announcements, okay? Because it's going to, this is difficult to see. I decided to stand at A. What is A? 49. That's where this comes from. That's where you're standing. From where I'm standing, I see that I know the opposite side is 14 and the hypotenuse is Y. That's what I know and what I'm trying to find out. So I know the opposite and I'm trying to find out the hypotenuse. What trig function here connects opposite and hypotenuse? This one, opposite hypotenuse, sine. So that's the ratio I'm interested in. So I say the sine of where I'm standing is opposite over hypotenuse.
Mr. Rombolski,
Yes,
can I use the restroom really quick?
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
So this is opposite over hypotenuse, because that's what sine is. Do you see that?
Yeah. So
If I'm
SIN is
standing here, what is my opposite side?
14.
14.
14. What is my hypotenuse?
Y.
Y.
But SIN is always where you're standing.
What's, no. If you're standing here, you might use sine, cosine, or tangent. What determines that is what you know and what you're trying to figure out.
So if
I
you
was
know the
trying to
top,
figure out- What's that?
so if you know the top one, but you don't know the opposite one, then it changes.
No, if instead of this, I was trying to find out the adjacent side, right? Then I know this is 14 and I'm trying to find the adjacent side. That would be opposite and adjacent. Then I would use tangent, and I would write tangent here instead of sine.
So you'll write TOA.
No, you'd write T stands for tangent. And here you would put opposite over adjacent. Okay, you're gonna have to go back and look at that Tuesday video. Okay?
Okay.
And then see me at my office hours at 2 o'clock today or 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
All right, once we get to this statement, okay, remember, sine of 49, I can put in my calculator. It's just a number. So a number equals a number over y. I should be able to solve for y now. But we haven't done many problems where y is in the denominator. But this looks very similar to something that we've solved a lot in the past. Doesn't it look like a proportion?
Yeah.
This is a ratio, and it's easy to make this guy a ratio. I just put it over 1. This is a ratio. If it's a ratio, how did we solve ratios? How did we solve
Cross multiply.
proportions? We just cross multiplied. If I had 2 ratios equal to each other, I cross multiplied. So I would say sine times y, or y times sine of 49 equals 1 times 14 is 14. Okay, so everybody see how I got from here to here. But sine of 49, I know what that is. That's just a number. What number did you say it was in the calculator? 0.75 what?
Wait. Sine.
0.754.
Okay, doesn't it round to 0.755? Yeah.
Yeah, 0.75.
Okay, so see, it's just a number. So it's a number times y equals 14. Well, how do I get rid of this number if I want to get y by itself?
Subtract it?
Nope, this is multiplication.
Alright.
What's the opposite of multiplying?
Division.
Division.
Division. So if I want the 0.755 to go away, I just divide by 0.755. It will cancel, right? And I'm taking 14 and I'm dividing by 0.755. Now take 14 and divide it by 0.755.
0.054.
What do you get?
0.054.
No, 14 divided by 0.755. What do you get?
18.54.
Right. 18.54.
543.
18.54. That's what y is equal to. Okay? So I just solved for y. It is 18.54. Okay? Now, in this problem, remember, you have to show me your setup to get full credit for the problem, and you also have to show this right here, how you solved for y. If you don't write how you solved for y, you're not going to get full credit for the problem. This is worth very little, okay? You have to show me your setup, and you have to show me your cross multiplication, okay? All right, so any questions on how I want you to show work on the quiz? Make sure you have that highlighted in your notes. You might want to just put a box around those 2 things so that you can use that as a guide. Because remember, the quiz is going to be open note, okay? Now, what I want to show you real quick is that if I was to take this same problem, okay, only instead of standing here, I decided to stand at B. So now I'm going to stand here. I can solve this problem and still get the correct answer. Okay, here's where things change. Is this still the hypotenuse? That
Yeah.
does not change. That never changes. But if I'm standing here,
14's adjacent.
the 14 is now next to me. I can reach down and pick it up. The AC is now opposite me, right? Okay, another way to figure out which one of these you want to use is I know the 14 and I'm trying to find the y. So my opposite isn't part of this problem, is it? So the opposite isn't part of this problem. So the only thing that's left is cosine, because cosine deals with adjacent and hypotenuse, and now it is the adjacent and the hypotenuse that I'm interested in. One of them I know, one I'm trying to find. Does everybody see that? Okay, so if I stand here, what is this angle? I'm standing there, I have to know what it is. Can I figure out what it is?
41.
It's 41, because if this is 49 and this is 90, I know they have to add up to 100. So there's one additional step you have to do if you're going to stand here. It might be a reason of why you want to stand here to do the problem. You can do it either way. So if I'm standing here, I'm standing at the 41-degree angle, and I'm interested in adjacent and hypotenuse. I'm interested in cosine. Okay, so Jacob, does that make sense of why we're going to use cosine now? You see that?
Wait, I don't understand.
Okay, so cosine of where I'm standing at 41, is now adjacent over hypotenuse. That's a ratio. What goes up top?
The
14. What goes on the bottom? The y. Okay. Again, make sure you highlight that. That's going to be half the credit for the problem. To solve it, I would just make it a proportion and cross multiply. Y times cosine of 41. Remember, cosine of 41, you put in your calculator. You treat that just like a number. You can't split that guy up. It always stays together, okay? Equals 1 times 14 is 14. And what is the cosine of 41 in your calculator? What is the cosine of 41?
0.755.
Look at that. The same thing we got over here. So I'm going to get the same answer, aren't I? So I got the same answer. It didn't matter whether I stood here or here. You're going to get the correct answer if your setup is correct. Okay, so that's why on these problems, I need to see your setup, I need to see your cross multiplication, and then finally I need to see your answer. All three things for full credit. Does that make sense? Okay. Remember, the solution to this homework I'm gonna post it right after this class on your class announcements, along with your homework for tomorrow morning, okay? So look for that right after this class. Give me about 5 minutes after class is over, all right? All right, so what we want to do today real quick is a problem like this, okay? Sine, cosine, tangent, I know that acronym. I want to find the angle, and I know these two sides, okay? So that's a little bit different, isn't it? Okay, I want to be able to find the angle that produces this ratio. Well, let's take a look at that real quick. What's the first thing you have to decide in a trig problem? Where to stand.
Where you're standing.
Okay, so where do you think you want to stand if you want to try to find this angle? Would you stand here or here? Left or
At
right?
the top.
Top or right.
Well, if you're trying to find this angle, why don't you stand at the angle you're trying to find? Okay, that's going to make the problem a lot easier. Because now once I find this angle where I'm standing, I'm done. If I find this angle, I still have to subtract it from 90 to find this one. So in these type problems where you're trying to find angles and not sides, stand at the angle you're trying to find. Okay, if you're trying to find this angle, stand there. And that'll make it a lot easier. Because if I'm standing here, what side is this? Opposite or adjacent?
Opposite.
This is the opposite. What side is this? Adjacent. Okay, so hypotenuse isn't part of this problem, is it? Okay, because I'm trying to find this angle and I know these two things. So hypotenuse isn't part of this problem. I know the opposite and the adjacent. So what trig function do you think I'm going to use?
Tangent.
Tangent. And I'm standing here. So I can say that the tangent of this angle is it 15 over 8 or 8 over 15?
8 over 15.
8 over 15. Okay. And if you take 8 over 15 and put it in your calculator, I think you get 0.533. So this is a case where you know the answer, you know the ratio, but you don't know what angle got you there. Well, you could take your calculator and you could just guess a lot. I could say, well, that looks like 30 degrees. So I'm going to take the tangent of 30 and get 0.577. Well, that's close, but it's not right. So see, I could guess. I could just keep picking angles and guess, but it seems like there should be a bit easier way to do that, right? Okay, and there is an easier way to do it. Remember, if you take the tangent of an angle, what does it give you when you hit enter? It gives you a ratio, right? Okay, well, if you look on your calculator, look at the tangent button. Right above it, what does it say? Does it say tangent -1?
Yes.
That stands for inverse tangent. What inverse tangent does is if you know the ratio, it'll give you the angle. It'll do the problem backwards. Okay? So that's really what we want in this problem, isn't it? See, if I know the answer and I'm trying to find the angle, I don't have to guess and take the tangent of a bunch of angles to try to get close to 0.533. I can go backwards. Your calculator knows how to go backwards. Let's take an easy example that we all know or getting used to. Go ahead and take your calculator and take the sine of 30 degrees. Okay, what is the sine of 30 degrees?
0.5.
0.5. The 0.5 is a ratio, right? It's 1/2. Now what I want you to do is I wanted you to take the sine inverse. So hit this gold key and then the tangent button. And you should see tan -1 come up. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
What tan -1 tells you to do is to give it the ratio and it will give you the angle. So now put in 0.5. Take the tangent inverse of 0.5. Oh, I'm sorry. We did the sine. I got my problems mixed up. You did the sine of 30 degrees and got 0.5. So now let's go to inverse sine. Okay, let's go to inverse sine and now put the 0.5 in. And you see how
30.
it takes you back to the 30. Everybody see that?
Yes.
So remember, you can take the tangent of an angle to get a ratio. But if you know the ratio and you want to find the angle and go backwards, this means you want to go backwards. This means you put in the ratio and it's going to give you the angle. So now we can do the tangent inverse. Okay, now I want you to put in tangent inverse and let's put in 8 over 15. And the nice thing is you can just put it in as 8 divided by 15. You just got to remember to close your brackets. Okay, so remember, whenever you're doing tan inverse, it has to be a ratio that you're putting in. And when you do that, what do you get? You get the angle.
28.07.
So that 28.07 is in degrees. Okay, so tangents give you, when you hit enter, give you a ratio. Inverse tangents of ratios get you back to the angle. That's the hard part of today's class, is understanding when to use these. Other than that, the setup is the same. Okay, all you have to do is figure out where you're standing, define your sides, and use the right ratio. Okay, this is just a way now to go backwards. If it's like Jeopardy, if you know the answer, what was the question? The question was, take the tangent of 28.07 degrees. Let's go ahead and do a quick example so you have that recorded, because this is something you might want to go back and look at again if it's still not making that much sense to you. Here's the example. Okay? The example is to solve this triangle, and all you know is this is 90 degrees, this is 6, and this is 9. And you're being asked to solve the triangle. Okay? What does it mean to solve a triangle? You got to find all the angles and all the sides. So I know one angle and two sides, so I have to find the other two angles and the other side. Okay. We already know how to find one of them. Last week, before we even, or a month ago, you could have figured out Z. How would you figure out Z? If it's a right triangle and you know 6 and 9. How would you figure out that Z is the what?
Hypotenuse.
Hypotenuse. How do you figure out the hypotenuse if you know two sides?
The longest one.
It is the
Or it's
longest
opposite
one.
from
How
the
do you
right
figure it
angle.
out? It's a
Oh, you do Pythagorean theorem?
Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared is C squared. So what would I write for this problem? 9 squared plus 6 squared equals Z squared. Because this is, C is always your hypotenuse. 9 squared is 81, 36. So that's what, 117 is equal to Z squared. If Z squared is 117, what is Z equal to?
10.81.
Right, and how did you get that? You took the square root of 117, right? Okay, so see, we already know how to find Z. That was a review part of the problem. This you should already know how to do. Today's lesson really concerns with how do you find these angles, okay? The first thing you have to figure out is which one you want to try to find first. Because if I find out this one and it's 30, it's easy to get this one. I know it's 60 because they have to add up to 90. So finding the first one is hard. Finding the second one is easy. You just subtract it from 90, right? Which one do you want to find first, X or Y?
X.
X. If I want to find X first, where am I going to stand?
At X.
X.
I'm going to stand at X. Okay, so here I am. I am standing at X. So now the 6, is it my opposite or my adjacent side?
Opposite.
Opposite.
My opposite side. Is the 9 my adjacent or opposite?
Jason.
Adjacent.
Adjacent. Okay. Z is not part of this problem now, is it? I'm trying to find this angle, and I'm using these two known facts to try to find this angle. So what trig function am I going to use?
Tangent.
Tangent.
Tangent. Okay. So now, if I'm standing here, I can say the tangent of where I'm standing, that's now my unknown, is a ratio. What ratio is it?
6 or 9. 2/3.
Over 9 or 9 over 6?
6 over
6
9.
6 over 9. Okay, that's the key to this problem right there. That's the setup. Now, I could guess a bunch of numbers till I get 2/3 or 0.666, but that would take a while. The answer is easy to get. If you're trying to find angles, what do you have to do? Tan inverse.
Inverse.
Tan inverse of a ratio will always give you the angle. So go ahead and in your calculator, make sure you're using the tan inverse. Okay, make sure that you hit the gold key first and then the tangent key. And then you can just put in 6 divided by 9, close your parentheses, and what do you get?
33.69.
30, okay, so that would round to 33.7. Okay, so now I know this angle. It is 33.7. Does everybody see how I got from here to here? That's the confusing part of today's class. Tangent of angles give you ratios. Inverse tangent of ratios give you angles.
Mr. Bomboski,
Yes,
is that a -1 outside the parentheses?
yes. Just
We'll
like
plug
it's a
that in.
-1 on your calculator.
So we'll just plug that in.
You don't plug the -1 in.
Oh,
What this is telling you to do is you no longer hit the tangent button, you hit the inverse tangent button,
oh, okay.
okay? And the inverse tangent button is the one that you have to hit the gold key first. Okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit the tangent inverse button, then you're gonna hit the 6 divided by 9, and then when you hit enter, it's gonna give you 33.47. 33.7, okay? So go ahead and try that on your calculator once you download the app. Make sure you get the right answer of 33.7. Okay, once you know that, this angle's easy to get. How do you find this angle if this one's 33.7? How do you get this angle?
You 93.7.
90 minus 33.7, what do you get? 56.3?
Yeah.
So the hard part was getting this angle, setting up the ratio. Stand at the angle you want, define your sides. That tells you what to write. So the tangent of the angle is, but this is like Jeopardy, you know the answer. What angle got you there? Use the tan inverse button. Once you know this angle, this one's easy to get. You just subtract it from 90. Okay? All right. So that's class for today. We're just about out of time, but a couple of you, I just want to make sure I have your homework. Remember, you have a homework assignment that I'm going to post right after this class. It's due 9 o'clock tomorrow morning in Dropbox. At 9 o'clock, I'm going to post the quiz. You have to turn the quiz in by midnight tomorrow night, and that is a mid-chapter quiz. So this is really the first major requirement of the 4th marking period. Okay, so tomorrow is a big day for you in geometry. All right, I'm going to go ahead and